What is the shape of water? Is it a circle, square? Not a triangle. The Shape of Water is a modern fantasy romance that is all about a creature that comes from the water. And it's about one mute woman who begins to bond with the creature. There's been a lot of talk about The Shape of Water recently, especially when it comes down to award season and what's going to be winning for Best Director and so on and so forth. And this movie comes up quite a bit, and it's not one that I've ever really heard of before, so let's get into it. First up, we're looking at the people category, which goes into the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry, all of which actually gets perfect points. The acting is done well all around. Michael Shannon is usually really good at what he does, just in general, but also Sally Hawkins does a really good job, especially for the fact that she doesn't have a speaking role and she has to rely so heavily on American Sign Language using her actual expression. I think the characters are easily memorable for who they are and what they do in order to contribute to the film. I can't really say I could see anybody else cast in these roles since they all do a fantastic job. And of course, this is a romance. It's a non-typical romance, mind you, but it is a romance, so the chemistry is definitely there. The people category gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. Next, we're looking at the writing category, which goes over the dialogue, balance of the film, the depth of the story, originality, and how interesting it is, all of which, again, gets perfect points. When it comes down to the dialogue, this is one of those kind of movies that focuses more on the fact that it's a lack of dialogue as the main character is a mute, and in a way, so is the creature from the Blue Lagoon. Black Lagoon? Green Lagoon? Lagoon? The balance of the film, perfect throughout, as it focuses very heavily on the relationship between the Beauty and the Beast and what's going on there and what they're going to do. The depth of the story has to do with love and how complicated love is in a way that it's not always traditional, like I said before. Original, I can't say I've really ever seen anything like this before, and it is definitely a very interesting concept and an interesting way that they deal with things. So the writing category gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. Next up is the BTS category. This goes over the visuals, the directing, editing, advertisement, and the music and sound, all of which also gets perfect points except for the editing. With the editing, I don't think there's anything particularly challenging for them that really stands out for me, so that only gets half points. Everything else gets perfect point. This is a pretty decently visually stunning movie, as it's dealing a lot with a certain tone and theme of the movie. So the visuals are great. Guillermo del Toro does a really good job of taking this jigsaw puzzle of a film and putting it together in a way that feels kind of magical in a way, but also stubborn. Advertising, I do believe it is as advertised, no false advertising there, and the music and sound is pretty remarkable from the get-go. It's one of the first things you recognize. 9 out of 10 possible stars for BTS. Next up, we're looking at the narrative arc score, which goes into the introduction, the inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action. All of this also gets perfect scores. The introduction does a good job of introducing you to Sally Hawkins' character, as well as her father figure of sorts, her best friend, and the job that she's working in, which leads you into the inciting incident, which is getting us acquainted with the creature, which really changes things up. The obstacles is really getting into the nitty-gritty of the actual plot of trying to save the life of this creature. The climax is a big culmination of everything in between, feels stronger and bigger than anything before it. And the falling action calms down and does return to a new sense of norm that is different than how it begins. The narrative arc gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at the entertainment category, which goes over how rewatchable it is, if you have a good time while watching it, if you have any kind of impulse to buy it or own it, any kind of impulse to talk about it, and does it suck the audience in? I do think it's rewatchable. I think if I ran into it, I'd check it out for sure, but I don't think I will be going out to search for it, so that gets half points. I did have a pretty fun experience while watching it. I had a good time, so that gets full points. I don't really care to own it or buy it, so I won't be putting it on a wish list for my birthday or Christmas or anything like that. That gets 0. the impulse to talk about it other than this review a little bit. I think there are some discussion-worthy elements in the film, so that gets half points. And does it suck the audience in? I think for the most part it does suck the audience in. I think there's enough happening and enough interesting things going on that'll keep the audience interested, so that gets full points. Entertainment score is 6 out of 10 possible stars. Specialty category. This goes over the 5 things that I wanted to know before watching the movie. IMDb lists this off as a romance, fantasy, drama, adventure. These are 4 things that I want to know, along with if it's halfway decent. As a romance, it is, like I said, a non-traditional romance, but it is romance nonetheless. It has a lot of focus on character development and making this actually make sense in a strange way. So that gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. As a fantasy, it is a more of a modern fantasy, so 10 out of 10 possible stars for that. Drama, definitely a lot of emotional, dramatic things going on that warrants a full points of 10 out of 10. As an adventure, I don't really think so. There's nothing adventurous about this movie for me. There is some adventurous moments in the movie, but as an adventure on its own, probably not. So I'll give half points there and say 5 out of 10 possible stars. Finally, is the movie halfway decent? Of course it is. Del Toro definitely made the movie that he wanted to make, and it's working out well. So 10 out of 10 possible stars for halfway decent. If we add up all those points, we get 90 out of 100 possible stars, 90%, so it is a pretty decent movie. Guys, tell me what you thought of The Shape of Water in the comments down below, and for YouTube, you can subscribe me, hit that like button, and hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next movie review, which should be tomorrow. So until then, guys, peace out and have a good day.